Part 25. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 241. Dealing with Reina has become Lin Xian's passive skill. He dispelled her strange thoughts in just a few words. But why did she compare Hosokawa Ryo and Miyazaki Ri? That's right, it seems that he really doesn't have many friends. After Shiu walked in, he walked around the first floor and didn't find where Michiko went, so he turned back and said to Reina, "Let's go out to eat tonight. Why don't you finish your homework now? We may not be back tonight." Then what are we going to eat tonight? Reina knew, because Lin Xian had said before that he would take her to eat delicious food after the exam, but Michiko didn't know the agreement between the two. "This is a secret." Lin Xian smiled and didn't say it out loud. He just patted Reina's head and said, "Go." "I know, Oni-chan, don't pat me." Reina had no choice but to slap Lin Xian's hand away. She had heard that if your head is patted too much, you won't grow taller. Lin Xian was a little surprised. Reina was not like this before. "My little cotton padded jacket has become a black-hearted cotton. You've changed." Reina wasn't like this before. Lin Xian pretended to be very sad to Reina. Maybe Lin Xian's disappointed expression was too exaggerated. Reina hesitated to explain after seeing it. "Haha. You are a junior high school student, and you still believe this?" Lin Xian's expression changed immediately, and his reaction was very real. "Huh? Oni-chan bullied me again." Lin Xian's reaction was obviously to laugh at her. Reina also knew that she had been deceived just now, and she pulled his clothes with her backhand. Okay. Stop playing, go do your homework, otherwise you won't be able to sleep in tomorrow." Lin Xian finally coaxed Reina away and went up to the second floor by himself. Knock knock. There was a slight knock on the door. "Can I come in?" Lin Xian opened the door without waiting for a response. He knew Michiko was inside, and the question just now was just a reminder. "Aota-kun is back." Michiko was about to stand up but was stopped by Lin Xian. "Okay, let's go out to eat tonight." Lin Xian stretched out his hand and pressed it lightly, indicating that she didn't need to get up. Yes, Michiko nodded and sat down. Seeing her reaction, Lin Xian didn't know what to say for a while. She didn't even ask why they went out to eat. Even Reina asked where they were going to eat, but she didn't ask anything. Lin Xian left the room disappointedly and slipped back to his room. "Come on, Xiaobai, let me see if you are developing normally." Lin Xian caught Xiaobai and picked him up and touched him randomly. Alas, it's more fun to pet a cat. Xiaobai has recovered a little in the past few days, and his spirits are obviously much better. The touch is no longer a bone. "Can I take you out for dinner tonight?" Lin Xian picked up Xiaobai. He almost didn't take it out during this period. Today, he just took it out to play and had a good meal to make up for it. Meow. Xiaobai sleeps in the room most of the time every day, and only goes out when eating. It has no interest in going out now. "Your favorite fish belly is enough for you to eat." Lin Xian threw out a bait that Xiaobai couldn't refuse. Meow. Xiaobai struggled to jump out of Lin Xian's hand and walked around the door. It knew that it couldn't open the door now, and kept barking at Lin Xian. "But you should pay attention to your weight this time. If you get too fat, it will be over." Lin Xian looked at Xiaobai's impatient look and told it first. Although the cat face and pig body feel good to rub, it is not a good thing for Xiaobai. The hidden dangers brought by obesity are not only for humans. Lin Xian didn't care about it before because he did have this need, but now he doesn't. Woo woo. "Okay, what's the hurry?" Lin Xian got up to help it open the door, and then it rushed out. Lin Xian went downstairs and saw Xiaobai rummaging in the refrigerator, and then he realized that it was confirming whether its food had been deducted. Maybe it felt that Lin Xian must have done something to let it down by suddenly being so nice to it. "Ha ha ha. Xiaobai, what are you doing?" Lin Xian walked over and picked it up. "Huh. I was wondering why you were in such a hurry to run out, so that's how you look at me. Lin Zion teased Xiaobai for a while, and soon Michiko came down. Lin Zion watched Michiko walk down from top to bottom. She changed her clothes, not those casual clothes, but a more formal one. What's wrong? Michiko saw Lin Zion looking at her, lowered her head and fiddled with her clothes and asked, is this set of clothes not okay? I'll change another one. Michiko still remembered that she disliked the clothes she wore when Lin Zion took her out last time, and this set was bought by Lin Zion for her before. She just picked this set just now because she was afraid of this. Lin Zion said that they were mother and daughter because the clothes they wore at that time were really outrageous. In fact, it's not that he really disliked them, but Michiko seemed to have misunderstood. No, I think what I wore just now is good. We're just going to dinner, so there's no need to be so formal. Lin Zion leaned on the sofa and looked at Michiko standing at the stairs, his hand touching Xiaobai's body. It's okay, I haven't worn the suit since I bought it. Michiko breathed a sigh of relief and said with a smile. It looks good on you. Really? This was picked by Qing Tianjun. The two chatted awkwardly for a while. Lin Zion glanced at the time and said, it's almost time, go and call Reina down. Yes, Michiko replied and left. Lin Zion let go of Xiaobai and played with his phone. He had already booked the location, and the car was already outside. That's right, the place Lin Zion was going to was the private restaurant of the Gaoshi family. In fact, to put it bluntly, it was a club. It's just that it's a high-end route, and the guests it receives are more high-end. Aoni-chan, are we going? Lin Zion could hear Reina's voice before she came downstairs. When she came down, it was even more exaggerated, and the stairs almost turned into a slide. Michiko followed slowly behind, and her eyes when she looked at Reina clearly revealed helplessness. Lin Zion certainly noticed it, but he didn't say anything to Reina, just smiled. Let's go, the car is waiting outside. The place we're going to today is a bit far, but it's still worth going once. Lin Zion ordered a seafood set meal today. In fact, Lin Zion had already bought most of the seafood in this world. The reason why he decided on this set meal was because of resentment. He has been in Neon for a while, but every time he wanted to eat something good by himself, he would get into trouble, so he had been putting it off until now. Gao Shijia certainly went all out when he received Lin Zion's order. Almost all the precious seafood from all over the world were ready. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 242. When Lin Zion walked out with Oda and her daughter, a very inconspicuous business car stopped at the door. This car had actually been parked nearby for a long time, and it arrived at the door as soon as Lin Zion called just now. I can only say that the Takaishi family made good arrangements. Sir, please come in. A middle-aged man in a suit with a low brow opened the door for him. He looked like he had been standing for a while. Go up. Lin Zion did not go in, but let Michiko go in first. Yes, Michiko obviously had not encountered this scene, and hurriedly pulled Reina up. I don't think I have seen you. Lin Zion has been to Takaishi's house several times, but he seems to have never seen this person, and he can't help but be a little curious. I am Mr. Takaishi's driver, please rest assured, Mr. Takaishi has made arrangements. The driver trembled and his face was slightly nervous. When he came out today, Takaishi Shuichiro specifically told him to deal with it seriously and not to relax at all. He has been Takaishi Shuichiro's driver for so many years, but he has never seen him like this. Moreover, he personally hosted a dinner party that couldn't be simpler, fearing that something unexpected might happen. Originally, he thought he was going to meet some high-ranking official, but who knew it was a child? Relax, I'm not as picky as he said. Go ahead. Lin Zion smiled at the driver's appearance, and then got into the car. After closing the car door, the driver realized that he had panicked just now. He had met many dignitaries with Takaishi Shuichiro, but this boy who looked most like an ordinary person gave him the greatest pressure. In fact, he scared himself. Lin Zion never put any pressure on him. Those pressures were just his own imagination. In the past, when meeting others with Takaishi Shuichiro was older in Neon and his strength was not bad, so everyone gave him face. After being labeled as a member of the Takaishi family, he, as a driver and bodyguard, also had some face, which made him able to face those people very peacefully. But now, even Takaishi Shuichiro did this. What face did he have as a driver? Lin Zion just thought that he had never seen this person before, and he could not know his mental activities by asking casually. After Lin Zion entered, he saw Michiko sitting upright, looking straight ahead. If you didn't know, you would think there was a thorn in the position. Reina was being held by Michiko and couldn't move. When she saw Lin Zion coming in, she immediately cast a look for help at him. Relax, the owner of that store is very familiar to me. Lin Zion smiled and broke Michiko's hand holding Reina. As soon as Reina broke away from Michiko, she ran to the other side, with Lin Zion between them. Michiko glanced at Lin Zion with resentment, then folded her hands and placed them on her thighs. Oda Michiko was also helpless. Why didn't her daughter obey? You couldn't see anything from the outside of the car, but the interior of the car was not simple at all. Even she could see that the owner of the car must be a rich man. Lin Zion didn't say anything else, just smiled and leaned back in the seat. He had said everything he should say, and whether Michiko listened or not was her own business. The car drove very steadily and there were no problems during the period, and they arrived at Takaishi Shuichiro's private kitchen. Okay, we can just walk in by ourselves. Lin Zion rejected the driver's suggestion to drive in directly, and parked at the door directly according to the rules. If he came alone, he wouldn't mind. Lin Zion mainly wanted to take Oda mother and daughter to visit here before eating. The driver certainly had no objection to Lin Zion's words, and stopped the car at the outer door. Let's go, I'll take you around first. Lin Zion walked out holding Reina's hand, and Michiko followed beside him. Lin Zion had been here once or twice, so he was quite familiar with this place. This place is modeled after. Lin Zion walked along the way and briefly introduced the environment and architectural style here to Oda mother and daughter. As an outsider, he talked about the traditional architecture in Neon, and they were stunned. Ani-chan, Reina is hungry. Reina tugged at Lin Zion's hand and looked up at him. Okay, it's almost time. Lin Zion took them directly to the inner courtyard. As soon as he entered, Lin Zion saw an acquaintance. Sir Takaishi Mai, who was waiting at the door, bowed slightly and saluted when she saw Lin Zion coming in, and then walked over with small steps. Tap tap tap. Lin Zion didn't know whether Takaishi Mai liked to wear kimonos or something. Anyway, he saw her wearing kimonos most of the time. Because he had visited a museum about kimonos when he went to Kingmei County before, he still had some understanding of this. It's just that Takaishi Mai's clothes have been improved in modern times, removing many fancy and impractical decorations, and look very neat. She wore a light blue kimono with plum blossom patterns on it today. Mai, why are you here? Lin Zion was a little puzzled. Logically, shouldn't Takaishi Shuichiro let Mai Takaishi go into seclusion for more than 10 years? This is the power he has always dreamed of. Before Mai Takaishi has fully mastered it, Takaishi Shuichiro will definitely not let her come out. Today is just a casual meal, and I didn't ask Takaishi Shuichiro to arrange for her to come. Why is she here? There is no need to get acquainted with them, and it is even more impossible to get benefits from me. Doesn't the old man know who I am? A piece of rubbish skills taken from Bing Xian deceived them into selling the entire family. What else can they show? This is the boss's granddaughter, named Takaishi Mai. Lin Zion said to Oda's mother and daughter as she watched Takaishi Mai come over. Reina looked at the person who came over with vigilance. This person seemed to pose a threat to her. Because anyone with a discerning eye could see that her attitude towards Lin Zion was a little too good. "Hello, sir, the room is ready," Takahashi Mai said with a smile, but she looked at Oda's mother and daughter with a strange look. "Let's go, lead the way," Lin Zion did not explain to Takahashi Mai. To be honest, he was a little interested in Takahashi Mai at first, but when he knew that Takahashi Mai was the heir that Takahashi Shuichiro had been protecting, he lost interest. This person is a bit scheming, and the fact that she can be trained as an heir by Takahashi Shuichiro, an old fox, explains the problem. It's just that he intervened and forced Takahashi Mai to become an onmyoji. But this onmyoji is a little watery. Her talent was originally average, and Lin Zion forced it in, so her future achievements may be very average. Of course, this is when he doesn't make any move. If he wants to train her, it's very easy. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 243. It's just that Chiu couldn't possibly treat her the same way he treated Chihiro. The difference between the two was not only in status, but also in nature. However, Lin Zion didn't show anything. Instead, he smiled and said to Mai Takahashi, "I haven't seen you for a while. I've been studying a lot lately and I won't come out to play." Mai Takahashi turned around and stuck out her tongue mischievously. The Takahashi family had a legacy in the past. Even if the most basic skills were lost, there was still a lot of knowledge about cultivation that was passed down. Especially Takahashi Shuichiro has been secretly collecting that knowledge, so he naturally has to pass it all on to Mai Takahashi, the heir. Since Lin Zion left the Takahashi ancestral home, Mai Takahashi has been learning everything about those things at the request of Takahashi Shuichiro. Until Lin Zion arranged this dinner, Takahashi Shuichiro took this opportunity to send Mai Takahashi here. First, he can get in touch with Lin Zion, which can be said to be 100 benefits without any harm. In addition, Takahashi Shuichiro could see that after a long period of study, young people like Takahashi Mai could not calm down, so it would be good to take this opportunity to go out for a walk. "Very good, studying should be easy for you," Shiu answered casually, and then suddenly asked as if he remembered something, "By the way, where is your sister? I heard that she hasn't been to school for a while." "Sir, don't you know?" Momo Takahashi Mai put away her expression just now when he heard him ask this, and then smiled and said, "If she didn't tell you, please allow me to keep it secret for now." Lin Zion watched Takahashi Mai turn back and lead the way honestly, and immediately felt that there was something wrong. But just now he suddenly remembered that he was questioned by Tsuji Tomi before, and he had no interest in Momo Takahashi, the eldest lady, so he didn't ask any more questions. Lin Zion didn't react much, but Reina became nervous. "Sister? Last name Takahashi?" Reina searched her mind and finally found someone related to this from her memory. The woman who claimed to be the fiancée of Uni-chan. Reina immediately became alert and looked at Mai Takahashi's back. No wonder she seemed so familiar with Uni-chan. What was her relationship with Uni-chan? The more she thought about it, the more annoyed she became. Reina's face changed several times. Reina followed behind, and Lin Zion didn't pay attention to her, but Michiko saw her daughter's reaction for the first time. With a sigh, Michiko pulled Reina's hand a little harder to bring her out of her thoughts. Reina immediately felt the strength in her hand suddenly increase, and then looked at Michiko. Michiko's face was normal, and she didn't show anything. Lin Zion knew nothing about what was happening behind him. He was not a pervert, who would pay attention to others all day long. "Sir, please." Mai Takahashi took them to the door of a room and opened the shoji door herself. This room Lin Zion walked in with a smile. Wasn't this the room where Yukino Takemi brought him to, and left him hanging here for half a day? The decoration here has not changed, it is still the same. Lin Zion doesn't think that the Takaishi family can't afford better decoration, but maybe they just like this simple style. Sit anywhere. Lin Zion found a place and sat cross-legged, looking at the Oda mother and daughter who came in and said. Reina sat next to him as soon as she came in, and Michiko had to sit on the other side of Reina. In this kind of place, she has to keep an eye on Reina and can't let her mess around. Sir, please order the dishes. Takaishi Mai was obviously ready long ago. She sat directly opposite Lin Zion and took out a menu and pushed it in front of him. You guys order whatever you want to eat. Lin Zion didn't take the menu, but pushed the menu to Reina. He always felt something was wrong, and he didn't feel like eating anymore. Isn't it something wrong again? Every time I want to eat seafood, there is a problem. Lin Zion didn't ask Takaishi Mai directly what happened. He didn't want to expose the Oda mother and daughter to these things. Seeing that Reina was struggling to order anything after looking at the menu for a long time, Lin Zion asked, "What's wrong? Don't you want to eat anything?" "No, I just don't recognize these dishes." Reina returned the menu to him. Lin Zion didn't pay attention to what was written on the menu just now, but he had said before that he wanted to eat seafood, and if Takaishi Shuichiro wasn't stupid, he would arrange it. But Reina said she didn't recognize these dishes. After taking the menu and looking at it, Lin Zion understood what Reina meant. The menu only had the names and quantities of the seafood, no prices and no pictures. This menu should be newly made. Lin Zion smiled knowingly. The chef dared to write like this, which means he can make those dishes with this kind of raw materials. In other words, if you dare to say it, he will dare to do it. So confident? This chef seems to have something. Not knowing what he was thinking, he pushed the menu back to Mai Takaishi and said, "The first question is shrimp. Let him serve the 3 most delicious ones first." Since he was so confident, Lin Zion didn't mind being the examiner to test this person's water. "Yes," Mai Takaishi smiled and left the room after hearing this. When Reina saw Mai Takaishi leave, she hurriedly asked, "Ani-chan, how do you know her?" Lin Zion knew what Reina wanted to ask, so he said, "Because of work contacts, I know her grandfather." Then, Reina was not satisfied with the answer just now. She was about to continue asking, but was interrupted by Lin Zion. "Okay, just an ordinary acquaintance." Lin Zion put his hand on Reina's head and rubbed it gently. "Let's eat first." "Oh," Reina said helplessly. The momentum had been interrupted by Lin Zion, and she couldn't ask anything else. Michiko next to her covered her mouth and chuckled at Reina's appearance, looking a little gloating. Not long after, Takaishi Mai came over with a tray. It can be seen that she often does this kind of thing. Lin Zion probably thinks that Takaishi Shuichiro often gathers friends here, and Takaishi Mai was arranged to be a waiter beside him. Don't think that being a waiter is shameful. Being a waiter in such a dinner party is something that many people can't even think about. Only the true heir of the Takaishi family is qualified. It looks like a waiter, but this is Takaishi Shuichiro inheriting his network of contacts to Takaishi Mai. How many people who can sit at Takaishi Shuichiro's table are simple people? The simplest example is Yukino Takemi. Takaishi Shuichiro is too senior. As for Takaishi Mamakai, the little princess who was pushed out, Lin Zion doesn't want to know too much. There are many bad things in such a big family, and even he doesn't want to know deeply. After all, human hearts are not good things. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 244. Sir, please give it a try. 3 plates of exquisite dishes were placed in front of Lin Zion one by Gao Shimei. Lin Zion, who was still a little curious at first, lost interest after seeing the dishes on the table. It's just sashimi of 3 kinds of lobster meat. Thinking about the eating habits of Neon people, it seems quite normal. In fact, he could also accept sashimi, but what made him most uncomfortable was the pitifully small portion. One plate was just enough for him to eat. His understanding of eating is eating. What's the point of eating if you can't feel full? You guys try it. Lin Zion pushed the dish in front of Oda and his daughter, and then turned to Takahashi Mai and said, just go ahead and order the big portion, the whole steamed lobster. Yes, Mai. Takahashi walked back with the tray, then pushed the door open and left. She felt that Lin Zion was not satisfied with the dish, but she was not sure why, so she had to prepare it according to his instructions. In fact, I don't blame the chef. After all, most of the people who come here don't come here just for the appetite. This place just gives them a space to communicate. And those exquisite dishes were not originally meant to satiate them, but were just meant to buffer those people and find topics to talk about. When the chef comes here, he can only act according to the rules here. It's delicious. Are you really not going to eat it, Ani-chan? Reina waved her chopsticks at the side. It was obvious that the dish just now was to her liking. Haha. Of course it's delicious. It's all airlifted from all over the world. It won't take more than a day from the time it's caught to here. It's really suitable for sashimi at this time. It's fresh enough and still retains the taste. Lin Zion smiled. He explained to her. Then why don't you eat, Ani-chan? Reina stopped her chopsticks and asked. It wasn't because she wanted to ask Lin Zion that she stopped using her chopsticks, but because she had already finished the food. You should eat more. Lin Zion smiled and touched her head. The ones coming later are more delicious. Now that you are full, you won't be able to eat any more after a while. There was just one sentence he didn't say. Michiko only tasted the food briefly, stopping her chopsticks after trying each item. From the looks of it, she still liked the food, but he didn't do much to eat it, and Rina also liked it, so she gave it to her. Go ahead and eat. The owner of this place won't be happy if you don't leave until you're full today. Lin Zion suddenly said something. Michiko looked up and saw Lin Zion looking at her. Before she could react, Reina said something first. Really? But these seem to be very expensive. Reina also woke up from the excitement just now and looked at the empty disc in front of her with hesitation. Who is he? Do you need to pay to eat here? What's more, it's not like he can't afford the money. How much can he eat in one meal? This little money is not in his eyes at all. Eat it with confidence. These are not those exaggerated seafood, they are very cheap. Lin Zion did not say that the meal was free, and casually mentioned a price, but the ingredients whose reputation is not worth their strength are very bad. Soon Mai Takahashi came back, but this time her tray was much larger, with 3 steamed red lobsters on it. Come on, try it. The dishes were served one by one, and Lene was full soon. She could only watch Lin Zion eat, and Lin Zion often teased her to make her greedy, but her round belly did not allow her to continue eating at all. Reina, do you want to eat it? This looks delicious. Don't eat. Lene clearly knew that Lin Zion had no good intentions, so she refused righteously. Oh really? Lin Zion specially held it in front of her with chopsticks and waved it. It's such a pity that you don't want to eat it when it's so delicious. Lene watched as a peeled crab leg dangling in front of her was eaten by Lin Zion in one bite. Ani-chan will bully me. Reina climbed onto Michiko's hand next to her, shook it, and said, Mom won't help me either. Okay Kingtian-kun, stop teasing Reina, eating too much is not good. Even Michiko couldn't stand it and started to persuade her. Well, we're almost done eating. Lin Zion stopped his hand and looked at Mai Takahashi who was kneeling beside her, then looked at Oda and his daughter and said, I'm going to visit the boss here, do you want to go with me? After hearing this, Mai Jace was stunned for a moment, then looked up at Lin Zion. The excitement on her face could not be suppressed at all, and her eyes seemed to light up. No, let's wait for you here. Reina is too full to just leave. Michiko looked at Lin Zion with a smile on her face, and suppressed Reina who was about to move with one hand. Okay, Lindsay, I acted indifferently, but he still added, you can take a walk here. If you need anything, you can ask the people here. I will come back after I go. Don't worry, Kingtian-kun. Michiko took Reina's hand and nodded to Linzian. Let's go, lead the way. Yes. Linzian's calm voice woke up Gao Shimei, and she quickly stood up and walked to the front to open the door. The two people quickly left the inner courtyard and were walking towards the small villa over there. Linzian is also very familiar with this place, and there is no need to lead the way. He just asked Gao Shimei to come out. It's just that compared to the ordinary one just now, Takahashi Mai's attitude towards him is too enthusiastic now, and it's even a bit wrong. Every time I see you, you change a lot. Linzian opened the topic. It's just that the first time you were covering yourself up, the second time you revealed yourself, but this time the change made it impossible for me to recognize you. Linzian still remembers that she was very ordinary when they first met, but Linzian noticed her difference at that time, otherwise he would not have tested her again and again. Drag Mamazai Takahashi over, and pull her to the bedside of Shuichiro Takahashi. Originally, Shuichi just thought that Mai Takahashi was a confidant of Shuichiro Takahashi and knew that he was pretending to be sick, but he didn't expect that Mai Takahashi didn't know about pretending to be sick, nor was she Shuichiro Takahashi's confidant, but the real heir of the Takahashi family. I don't know how Shuichiro Takahashi chose, their family actually let a woman become the heir. However, judging from the reaction of Shuichiro Takahashi's children at that time, except for the eldest who knew something, the rest of the family members were not insiders. Even the eldest lady, Mamazai Takahashi, didn't know. No one knew what Shuichiro Takahashi was doing. The second time he met the real Mai Takahashi, the heir trained by Shuichiro Takahashi. However, under the circumstances at that time, this heir became just one of the links in the deal between him and Takahashi Shuichiro, and was driven away by him without any performance. Until now, she has changed again, becoming more and more. Wait a minute, let me check your homework. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 245. The two of them came to the door of the small villa. It was not as lively as the last time he came here. There was no one there. The whole villa looked deserted without lights. Takahashi Mai accelerated her pace and opened the door, then walked in. Soon the lights from the first floor door to the hall came on. Sir, please. Takahashi Mai walked out again to lead the way. Okay, it's not like I haven't been here before, no need. Linzian waved his hand and walked in on his own, soon surpassing Takahashi Mai. Yes, Takahashi Mai only agreed and hurried in. It was only a few steps from the door to the living room. Once inside, Linzian sat on the sofa in the living room very naturally, and then looked at Takahashi Mai, who came in behind, and said, "Come on, show me now." Linzian and Takahashi Mai both knew that they came here not to chat with Takahashi Shuichiro, but to check the results of Takahashi Mai's practice during this period. Yes, Takahashi Mai was also a little nervous. Although she could control the wandering soul, she still felt very pressured in front of the teacher. Takahashi Mai took out a wooden sign. This little gadget was made casually by Shiu when he was at her house. Originally, Shiu took a cup, but he changed it to this thing at her strong request. The wooden sign has only one function, which is to store some souls as a container. She held the wooden sign with both hands and closed her eyes to concentrate. Soon, some gray-white gas came out of the surface of the wooden sign. It was very weak, and even Linzian had to look very carefully to see it clearly. As time went by, more and more smoke condensed on the wooden sign, and then a human shape was seen. It took Takahashi Mai more than 10 minutes to summon the wandering soul. Although Linzian didn't have much expectations for her, such a performance made it difficult for him to do it. Try to control his movement. Yes, Takahashi Mai nodded vigorously. She also realized that her performance was a bit poor, because the knowledge that Lin Ziyan passed on to her at that time said that a normal onmyoji could usually complete this process in a few seconds. Her current level was indeed outrageous. Takaishi Mai worked hard to control the movement of the wandering soul, trying to restore her image in Lin Ziyan's mind, even if it was just a little. But the facts proved that her talent was indeed very ordinary. Even if she tried her best, the wandering soul was still floating slowly, as if his movement was not controlled by Takaishi Mai at all, but by the wind. Forget it, stop first. Lin Ziyan really couldn't stand it and wanted her to stop first. But he didn't expect the impact of his words on Takaishi Mai. Takaishi Mai raised her head suddenly when she heard this, and the expression on her face was not sure whether it was astonishment or something, but she was stunned. And the wooden sign in her hand fell to the ground because of her action. You should know that a person of my Takaishi's level cannot control wandering souls out of thin air. She has to rely on the wooden sign given to her by Lin Ziyan to control the wandering souls. And now the wooden sign as a controller has left her hand. The atmosphere on the field suddenly changed. The wandering souls that were in a daze subconsciously leaned on the living without control, and he could feel that Lin Ziyan was a dangerous person, so Mai Takaishi became his choice. This is also the very common phenomenon of killing the master in onmyoji. This is the disadvantage of relying on external forces. However, it depends on the situation. Some onmyoji will deliberately release Shikigami to subdue them many times, so that they can control Shikigami more effectively. There is also a situation like this, because of insufficient strength but wanting to control powerful Shikigami. This is likely to result in death, and even if it is handled well, it will cost a little. Seeing that the wandering soul was about to approach Mai Takaishi, but she did not react at all, and the whole person was like a fool. However, Lin Ziyan did not make a move, although he could easily subdue the wandering soul, but there was no benefit in doing so. I'll give you one more chance to subdue him, Lin Ziyan said slowly. When Takaishi Mai heard this, she seemed to come back to her senses, and her eyes, which had lost their luster, glowed with spirit. But at this time, the wandering soul was already in front of her and was about to touch her. Takaishi Mai suddenly roared, twisted her waist to the side, dodged the attack of the wandering soul, and then quickly stepped back a few steps to get out of the attack range of the wandering soul. Her movements were smooth, and the clothes she wore did not affect her movements, but instead had a different kind of beauty. Lin Ziyan watched from the side, without any expression on his face, as if he had known that she could dodge it. Lin Ziyan did think that Takaishi Mai could avoid that attack. Let alone that this was just a wandering soul with no strength, the way it moved was so weak, and Takaishi Mai had obviously received anti-kidnapping training, so it was not difficult for her to avoid such an attack. Also, this kind of wandering soul would not cause much harm even if it touched a person. He had to continue to weaken a person's spirit and body to really hurt a person. After she escaped, Takaishi Mai did not immediately pick up the wooden sign on the ground, but walked further away, waiting for the wandering soul to be attracted, and then picked up the wooden sign before the wandering soul approached. With the wooden sign in hand, Takaishi Mai used the power in it to collect the wandering soul back, but the process was a bit difficult. Lin Ziyan looked at her from the side, and finally understood why Shuichiro Takaishi chose her as his heir. He had also seen those juniors of Shuichiro Takaishi, and compared to those stinky fish and shrimps, Mai Takaishi's performance was indeed very good. She was right not to pick up the wooden sign immediately. The wandering soul was right next to the wooden sign at that time. If she hurriedly grabbed the wooden sign, she would definitely suffer a loss. Come here, Lin Ziyan waved to her. Takaishi Mai immediately ran over when she heard it, and her pair of straw shoes made a tap, tap, tap sound as she walked on the floor. Bring it here. Lin Ziyan looked at the wooden sign in her hand. Takaishi Mai respectfully handed over the wooden sign without any hesitation. Do you know what an onmyoji is? Lin Ziyan summoned the wandering spirit casually. It didn't take him even a second, It was almost instantaneous, and the difference was self-evident. Onmyoji is a game player, and Shikigami is a game character. In this game, the stronger the character controlled by the player and the more sensitive its movements are, the more powerful the player is. And you don't seem to be even a player. Lin Zian raised her hand gently, and Wandering Soul dug into the wooden sign by herself, which was completely different from the difficulty she had just faced. Of course, Lin Zian handed her the wooden sign, and then changed his tone. I'm not showing you this to say how powerful I am, but that I have mastered the method of controlling him. Sir, you said I didn't master the method. Takahashi Mai also understood what he meant, and he just showed her the real usage. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 246. It's not your fault. I just stuffed something into your mouth to save trouble. It's a problem for you to digest it. Lin Zian talked about what happened at that time without any care. No, it was a great favor for you to give the Takahashi family a chance at that time. Takahashi Mai shook her head. It's just that Mai is dull and can't digest the knowledge you gave me. No wonder that old guy Takahashi Shuichiro chose you. Just talking makes people feel comfortable, Lin Zian said with a smile. Thank you for your praise. Takahashi Mai knelt in front of Lin Zian and said, please give me some advice. Okay, get up. I hate these the most. Lin Zian glanced at her, waved his hand, and Takahashi Mai stood up. Takahashi Mai stayed where she was. She didn't want to stand up just now, but there was a force that held her up, and she couldn't resist it. In fact, you don't have to belittle yourself. Without a guide, your progress is normal. Don't look at those teenagers who can control Shikigami very quickly, but they all started practicing at the age of 4 or 5. It's normal to reach that level after more than 10 years of hard work, especially when they have someone to guide them. When they encounter difficulties, they can almost solve them by asking their predecessors or flipping through the collection of books. You are different. The family inheritance has been broken. Now you have changed a new method, which makes your family collection of books useless. You can only explore on your own, so it's normal to have this result. Lin Zian still comforted her appropriately to prevent her from becoming autistic. Of course, some geniuses are not excluded. Those people can't be described as human beings at all. Lin Zian seemed to remember something, and his face showed an envious expression. In his previous life, his talent was only above average, not as good as the best but better than the worst. Whenever he heard about those geniuses, he was envious. But it seems that he is the only one who survived to the end, and those geniuses were silent at the end. It can be said that talent is important, but not the most important. Mai Takahashi looked at Lin Zian in a daze and didn't dare to ask more questions. However, in her opinion, Lin Zian was already one of the strongest geniuses. You know, he was only 16 years old. Forget it. Lin Zian seemed to wake up from his memories, and then suddenly said something, and it was unknown who he was talking to. Let me tell you how to play this first. Lin Zian spent a little time explaining some of the uses and techniques of the technique. These things are trivial. As long as she is a normal person, she will understand it sooner or later. He is just telling her in advance now. Okay, that's it. Do you have any questions? That technique was only 1,000 words. He could fully master it with just one look. He wasted so much time waiting for Mai Takahashi. Yes, Mai Takahashi was obviously still immersed in the interpretation just now. She nodded subconsciously to show that she was listening. It took a few seconds before she realized that she had finished speaking. Okay, it's getting late, I'm going back. I'll prepare for you right away, sir. Just as she was about to move, Mai Takahashi stumbled and almost fell to the ground. Fortunately, a force in the void supported her. Lin Ziyan glanced at Chihiro who was supporting her and asked, "Are you okay?" "It's okay, I just stood for too long just now, and my legs are a little numb." The two of them were walking on the way back. Originally, Lin Ziyan told her not to follow him when he saw her limping, but she insisted on following him. Then she didn't care, and Lin Ziyan didn't care either. "Sir," Mai Takaishi lowered her head and shouted. "What?" Lin Ziyan looked at Mai Takaishi beside her. Can I ask you for answers if I have any questions in the future?" Mai Takaishi glanced at her secretly. "Sure," Lin Ziyan agreed without thinking too much. "Huh? Really? Then can I go find you, sir?" Mai Takaishi was overjoyed. Obviously, she didn't think Lin Ziyan would agree to her. "No, I'm busy." Lin Ziyan felt a little strange after he finished speaking, so he added, "Add a friend, and chat on the phone later." "Yes." Takaishi Mai took out her phone quickly. Even though Takaishi Shuichiro didn't like modern electrical appliances, which led to her rarely using electrical appliances around her, she still had something like a mobile phone. Lin Ziyan found that she didn't have an account for the chat software, so he had to wait for her to download and register first. Of course, you can also use emails that Japanese people are used to, but it's too troublesome for Lin Ziyan. Okay, Lin Ziyan put away his phone. And Takaishi Mai looked at the lonely person in the address book, and her heart was full of satisfaction. "Am I qualified now?" When she reacted, Lin Ziyan had already walked a distance, and she hurried to catch up. The two places were not far apart, and Lin Ziyan soon returned to the room. "Are you still eating? Aren't you afraid of being full?" When Lin Ziyan came back, he saw Rina working hard on the fruit plate. "Aoni-chan," Rina called out when she saw him come back, and then she heard Lin Ziyan talking about her. "Who told you to be gone for so long?" Reina muttered to herself. "Have you finished visiting Aota-kun?" Michiko asked with a smile. "Sir, the car is ready." Takaishi Mai followed Lin Ziyan in, and she didn't have time to put down the phone in her hand. Michiko stared at Takaishi Mai. When Mai Takaishi saw Michiko looking at her, she noticed that she was not in good condition. She messed up her clothes when she subdued the wandering spirit. Although her feet had been much better, she could still see that she was limping. In order to keep up with Lin Ziyan, her face was flushed. Compared with her dignified appearance before, it was indeed easy to be misunderstood now. No wonder Michiko looked at her like this. "Hee, hello." Mai Takaishi smiled awkwardly and retreated. She also knew that if she stayed there, she would be in trouble. "Let's go." Lin Ziyan knew what Michiko meant by looking at her, but did not explain. Michiko did not say much, nodded in response, and came to Reina to help her up. The funny thing is that Reina was too full to get up, so she asked Michiko to help her walk. By the way, wait for me." Lin Ziyan seemed to remember something and ran out. He came out after a long time, and he still had a bag in his hand. "Okay, let's go." "What is this?" Lingna looked at the bag and asked curiously, "Is it the snacks that Unai-chan is still hungry and wants to take back?" "Haha. I think it's you who's hungry." Lin Ziyan smiled and continued, "This is the dinner I promised Ziobai, but it's a pity that it doesn't want to come, so I can only take it back for it. My retirement life in Neon." Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 247. The car was very stable and fast. Lin Ziyan and Reina were chatting in the car, but Reina was mostly asking questions, while Michiko, who was pretending not to be interested, also pricked up her ears. Lin Ziyan didn't say anything, he just answered casually. He didn't do anything bad, so what was he afraid of? But it would be troublesome if there were too many problems. Reina had been tugging at his relationship with the Takaishi family. Fortunately, she didn't dare to be too presumptuous with the driver as an outsider. "How did you do in this exam? Are you confident of getting into the top 3? Lin Zion simply closed the topic with one sentence and asked him to play, then he would play with you slowly. Reina suddenly lost her temper. Although she was quite confident, she didn't dare to say that she did well in the test before the results came out. Lin Zion estimated that her level was only around the top 10, but it was good to be in the top 10 among more than 150 people. Kingtian Kun, do you want to take a bath? I'll put the hot water on. As soon as Michiko came back, she lost her restraint and seemed very natural. Don't worry about me, I have to feed Xiaobai, Lin Zion said casually, and added, don't take a shower after you've just eaten. Wait an hour or two to digest it first. Before Michiko could say anything, he had already gone upstairs. Looking at Lin Zion's back, Michiko smiled and said, look, you forced Kingtian-kun. No way, it was obviously Unai-chan who left us there first and left. Reina looked a little angry. Michiko sighed, looked at Reina and said, it's enough that Kingtian-kun can take us to that kind of place today. The rest is Kingtian-kun's own business, and we are not qualified to take care of it. That's not true, Reina curled her lips. Although she didn't want to admit it, she knew that what her mother said was the truth. Looking at the situation at the time, even Reina didn't believe that Lin Zion was really just visiting an old friend. Otherwise, why would Mai Takaishi be so excited? It's just that Reina knew her identity, and Michiko kept warning her that she was just pretending to be stupid by eating and drinking. After meeting Takaishi Mai, she had no appetite even if delicacies from the mountains and seas were placed in front of her. Intuition from a woman, this woman, Mai Takaishi, is coming with bad intentions. Obviously he came here for Unai-chan. What are you thinking about? Drink some tea to digest it easier. Michiko walked out of the kitchen holding 2 cups. Nothing. Reina shook her head, but she didn't seem to be paying attention here. Michiko sighed looking at Reina's dazed look. Xiaobai, I'm back. Lin Zion took the bag and entered the room directly. Meow. I asked you to go out for a walk with me, but you refused, and you still eat so much every day. Lin Zion grabbed it with one hand and took it to the roof. Feeding it in the room is not a good option. This lazy cat will definitely smell all over the room. An exquisite lunchbox full of fish. Hey, I promise you the salmon belly. Lin Zion put the lunchbox on the ground, and then put Xiaobai down. Meow, Xiaobai jumped off his hand, then circled around the lunchbox, leaning his nose to smell it. Just eat like this. It's too much trouble to go to the first floor to get a bowl. Meow. You still dislike it? If you don't want to eat it, I'll eat it. Lin Zion pretended to pick up the fish in the lunchbox, but Xiaobai immediately jumped over and held his hand. You. It just needs someone to snatch it, right? Lin Zion picked it up and ravaged it like crazy. Meow, Xiaobai struggled in his hands. What are you afraid of? If it's messy, it's messy. Anyway, you have to take a shower tonight. Lin Zion played with Xiaobai for a long time, and then let him eat after he had exercised enough. If you don't move anymore, you will become fat. Although the body of a cat-headed pig feels better, it is still not acceptable for its health. Lin Zion watched Xiaobai eating, and his immature hunting skills made him very sad. It seemed that he needed to find a few mice to use as toys for him to practice his skills. After all, the ancestral craftsmanship can't be lost. His mother seems to be pretty good, so he can't be bad either. Just when Lin Zion was formulating a training plan for Xiaobai, his cell phone beeped. This was the voice of the chat software, and Lin Zion guessed who was looking for him. When I turned on my phone, I saw that it was Mai Takaishi. Have you returned home, sir? Here we are, just tell us if you have anything. It was a very ordinary greeting, but Lin Zion knew that she didn't really ask if he had arrived. The driver would definitely report it after he arrived. In other words, Takaishi Mai had already known that he had returned home, and now she was just looking for a topic. Mai Takahashi on the other side of the screen looked at the words above in a daze. She had just finished reporting to Shuichiro Takahashi, and it was a rare compliment from him. Although she was chosen by Shuichiro Takahashi to be his successor, who knew the hard work involved. Facing those things, she could only bear it silently by herself. According to Shuichiro Takahashi, she was the one who shouldered the entire Takahashi family and could not make any mistakes. At the age of 15, she was supposed to live carefree under the big tree of the Takahashi family, but when her sister Takahashi Momo was willful, she followed Takahashi Shuichiro's teachings behind her back and learned various things. She was really envious and really tired. Mai Takahashi took a deep breath, then exhaled it slowly, picked up the phone again and communicated with Lin Zion, and then gradually fell silent after a brief exchange of greetings. Lin Zion looked at the useless words on his phone and silently exited the chat software. Master, this girl is too greedy, Kyung-sun can feel her. But before she could finish, Lin Zion interrupted her. I know. Kyung-sun appeared out of thin air. Ziobai, who was eating, looked up and then lowered his head to eat dinner. Then why did the master satisfy her? Of course it was for the arrangements. Later Lin Zion ignored Kyung-sun's doubts and explained to her instead. If we want to stay here, we will inevitably have to deal with some things in that area. It is not convenient for me to come forward, and neither can you, so we need someone who can come forward, and the Takahashi family is good. In Japan, he can help us do many things that are inconvenient for us, and they are easy to control. Because of the previous things, they will not have anything to do with the original forces of Japan. More importantly, their family is rich, which is the most important thing. They are the best choice both inside and outside, so I chose their family at that time. It was Chihiro who didn't understand the master's meaning, but they were too greedy and didn't have a grateful heart to the master at all. Well, how can you want the horse to run and not eat grass? I don't mind giving them some sweet tastes when they work for me, and if Takahashi Mai's level is too low, she can't do anything, not to mention that she will understand those skills sooner or later. Explaining them to her in advance will make them more grateful. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 248. Chihiro understands. Chihiro nodded, then looked outside. What? Want to go out? Lin Zion looked at Chihiro's appearance, knowing that it was what he had just said that made her like this, so he said, you don't have to care, after all, you are still too young, there will be plenty of time in the future. Chihiro wants to share the worries of the master. Before he finished speaking, Chihiro interrupted him. Go, be careful. Lin Zion smiled bitterly, not expecting Chihiro to also have a little temper. Yes, Chihiro disappeared in the air, and Ziobai, who had finished eating, stared at the direction where Chihiro disappeared, and then walked out. What are you going to do? Shiu grabbed Ziobai with one hand, and picked up the things on the ground with the other hand, while muttering, I don't know how many people are unlucky tonight. Meow. Don't look at it, you can't learn it. It's June. Lin Zion looked at the rising sun, thinking that he had been here for almost 2 months, and he was generally satisfied. After all, his retirement life was quite fulfilling. Holidays are always short, especially when they are only 1 day long. Lin Zion stood at the door dressed neatly, holding a standard school bag in his hand, but it was not his school bag, but Reina's. Reina, hurry up, you're going to be late. I'm coming. I'm coming. Reina rushed out with a bottle of milk and some unswallowed food in her mouth, complaining as she walked. It's all your fault for not waking me up. It's obviously you who are lazy. When your mom called you to get up, didn't you say you were on vacation? Lin Zion walked towards the school when he saw her come out, and Reina quickly followed. Why didn't you wake me up when you heard me? What are you calling? Aren't you still on vacation? Lin Zion teased. Humph. I'm not going to pay attention to you. Reina turned her head away. Originally, The results were released today, and I was going to give you extra meals, but forget it. Lin Zion shook his head to himself and said slowly. Snack. Reina suddenly became interested. What are we going to eat tonight? Then is Reina still losing weight? Lin Zion suddenly mentioned this, and Reina, who was originally very energetic, suddenly became weak. Remembering that day when she ate seafood until she was full, she weighed a lot more the next day. Originally, she could pretend not to know, but now it has been directly exposed. It's uncomfortable. Oh. By the way, Lin Zion changed the topic. There will be swimming lessons starting this week. Can you swim? Of course, Ani-chan told me what I was talking about. Swimming is very simple. Really? But I heard from your mother that you only wore that old swimsuit once. So what if it was once? I am a swimming genius. Reina was not embarrassed at all by being exposed, but boasted about herself, but her voice gradually weakened. Okay, it seems that I have to be a genius for our Reina. Lin Zion did not expose her, but continued with her words. In fact, this problem is easy to solve, just tell Yukino GMA. Besides, there will be teachers, so nothing should happen. Walking on the road, the closer to the school, the more people there are. When there are fewer people, Lingnei will still talk and laugh with him, but when there are more people, she becomes very introverted. It's almost like he asks one question and she answers one question. Your friend is here to pick you up. You go first. If you have anything, call me by phone. Lin Zion slowed down and fell behind Lingnei by 2 positions. Since Shui Yejiamei hates him so much, there is no need for him to stick to him. Let Lingnei handle her own affairs, so that he can be quiet. What a coincidence, Shui Yejiamei walked to Lingnei's side and replaced Lin Zion's position just now. Xiu, who was still nearby, couldn't help but complain in his heart when he heard her words. You don't know how long your car has been parked here, and you still say it's such a coincidence. Your pickup skills are not as good as his. Well. Lingnei nodded slightly, which was considered a response to her. Seeing that Reina did not resist, Yukino Giamei hurriedly continued to ask, why did you come so late today? I thought you were not coming. Something happened. What is it? Lin Zion, who was standing by, listened to their conversation and felt so awkward. Is this how straight men chat? Lin Zion remembered the silly conversation he had seen on the internet before. It was quite similar to what he was saying now. But after confirming that they were fine, he stopped listening. It was useless for him to listen to other people's chats. Back in the classroom, he seemed to disappear. Most of the people around him gathered in 2s and 3s to discuss the problems they would face later. The results were about to come out. The school only announced the results of the top 50 students. Only the teacher had a list of the rest. However, after the test papers were distributed, almost everyone in the class knew how many points they had taken. Generally, only those who were familiar with each other would tell each other their results. Of course, some people who did well in the exam would accidentally tell everyone about it. But it had nothing to do with him. He already knew how many points he had taken. Long live passing. One less point is a waste, and one more point is a waste. He was late to begin with, and the teacher came over not long after he sat down, holding a stack of test papers in his hands. Class hadn't started yet, but as usual there was a small class meeting on Monday morning, and the homeroom teacher, Miyazaki-ri, would come over to talk about something. And today's issue was grades. Because of the privacy of some people, the teacher called the students by name and asked them to go up and get the test paper. In fact, this is useless. A class is so big that the whole class will know if a pen is dropped, so almost everyone in the class knows the level of others. Except for Lin Zion himself. He didn't have much to say to those people. After Hosokawa Ryo became autistic, he didn't even have anyone to talk to. But he prefers it now, No one bothers him. Shigeki Aoda. Mayaso Ri's voice sounded, and almost everyone in the class was stunned for a moment. There is such a person in our class. I don't know who started it, and almost everyone in the class looked at him. Lin Zion looked decadent, and walked out casually to take the test paper from Mayaso Ri's hand. But after he took the test paper, he didn't go back directly, but looked at Mayaso Ri. Because the teacher would comment on other people who went up to get the test paper. Like, you have improved this time, you should keep it up in the future, you have regressed this time, you should work hard in the future, etc. In order to not stand out, he was ready to accept comments, but Gong Zongliwi looked at him for a moment, then she remembered that she should have something to say, and she had already thought of what to say to other students. But she had nothing to say to Lin Zion. You did well in the exam this time, and you must keep it up next time, Gong Zongliwi said habitually. Thank you, teacher. I forgot that there was another book. I only remembered it when I saw the reply today. Sorry, I'm a bit busy recently. But anyway, no one reads it, so no one should know. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 249. After Lin Zion settled down, another person quickly picked up, and the chatter in the class gradually disappeared. In the end, no one remembered him. Except for one person, of course. Hasakawa Ryo kept looking at him from the moment he went up until he walked down, and then quickly lowered his head again, hiding his face in the shadows. There was another person, but the expression on her face showed that she was a little unhappy, even disgusted, with Lin Zion. It's just that these have nothing to do with Lin Zion. When he returned to his seat, he turned into a salted fish again. Soon, Miyazun Ri's voice suddenly raised a few pitches, attracting the attention of the whole class. Everyone's performance in this exam has improved, but some have also declined. The one with the best performance in the class is Jinzi Tomi. Everyone should learn from her. The discussion in the class immediately turned to Jinzi Fujiang, and even Lin Zion looked over. He had heard that Jinzi Fujiang seemed to be 7th in the entire class this time, which was not very good, but definitely not bad, at least better than him. Because I delayed it for a while, it was already class time, and the teacher was already waiting outside, so Ri Miyazun hurried out after finishing speaking. She also had classes. Campus life is back on track. I go home after class, eat, and finish school again. Because they were all about test papers, school ended a little earlier than usual. This time, Reina was actually earlier than him and arrived at the school gate first. Lin Zion guessed that she was hiding from Yukino Yoshimi. Reina. Hey. Reina, who was standing aside, turned around suddenly and walked over with a smile when she saw him. Let's go. You're so happy, where did you get in the exam? Lin Zion didn't stop and walked directly out. 5th Reina looked a little proud, with a smile on her face. That's right, your grades are much better than mine, so it's not in vain that I take you to have a nice meal. Lin Zion will not be stingy with praise when he comes out. As a child, he still deserves praise. I'll take you to eat delicious food again in a few days. This time I won't eat seafood. Let's try another one. No. Why? I see you had a great time eating that day, didn't you? Because. Reina paused for a few seconds, then touched her belly and said, because I want to lose weight. I gained weight again after I came back last time. Whatever, shall I take you to play? Lin Zion thought that there will be swimming lessons soon, so it would be better to find a place to practice first. After all, Lene doesn't seem to be good at it. It's just that he needs to find this place. He doesn't want to go to those swimming pools. There are too many people and it's troublesome. Lin Zian's first thought was Sakai Otoha's house, but after taking Reina there, it would be difficult to escape, and there would be no excuse in the future. Well, let's forget it. Lin Zian thought for a while, and finally felt that it was more comfortable to fish at home, and going out would be too troublesome. Lene didn't know what Lin Zian was thinking. She was quite happy to hear that she was going to take her out to play, but she just said nothing more. Then where are you going to play, Ani-chan? Reina asked tentatively. Let's see if we are free. I just had 2 days off, and I have a lot of work accumulated over there. Lin Zian was not talking nonsense. Who knows if Sakai Nito's weight has changed in the past 2 days, anyway, he thinks Sakai Nitoye was not so obedient. Oh, after hearing this, Lene remembered that Lin Zian still had work. She was a little confused because of the 2 days of vacation. Ani-chan, you have to work hard. Let's play again when we have time later. Reina returned to her original state after a while. Don't worry, passenger pigeon has never lied to you. Lin Zian smiled, but Lene didn't know yet how far she was from being free. Let's go this way. After leaving the school gate and reaching the intersection, Lene grabbed Lin Zian's clothes. What's the matter? Isn't the main road pretty good? It's a lot farther over there. Lin Zian glanced at the other road. He took Lena through that road once, but she complained that it was too far, so he didn't take him there anymore. She passed. What does it mean now? Lin Zian smiled. She just didn't want to take Yukino Yami's car, but it wouldn't be good to just leave like this. They are all friends no matter what. Let's take the main road. Lin Zian smiled, and then took Lene to the main road. Reina was suddenly pulled by him, and she couldn't react for a moment. By the time she reacted, she had already passed the intersection. What are you doing, Ani-chan? Reina shook off Lin Zian's hand, but she didn't look angry, but rather shy. I'll tell your friend when I meet her later. Lin Zian didn't react at all. He was about to let go. Okay. Reina seemed to be discouraged when she heard this, and her little face that was swollen just now relaxed. It's much better for 2 people to walk on the road than to take a car, which is why he chose a location close to the school. Lena, look. Lin Zian, who was walking in front, suddenly slowed down and smiled weirdly. Humph. Go up and tell yourself. Reina was obviously still worried about him leaving her last time. I know, don't worry. Lin Zian looked very relaxed and walked forward. The car was still the same car. Lin Zian walked over and knocked on the backseat window. When the car window slid down, he realized that Matsushita Haru had lowered it, and Yukino Yoshimi was sitting in the back seat. You don't have to wait for Reina anymore. If it's on the way, she will go home with you at school. Lin Zian said and left without giving Yukino Jiame a chance to speak. And those words were not said to Yukino Jiame, but to Matsushita Haru. She just needed to understand what they meant. After walking away, Reina asked nervously, what did Ani-chan say just now? She said you need to lose weight, walk more, and can't take the car. Lin Zian smiled. Of course, he knew what Reina was thinking. She was just afraid that what she said was too bad and hurt Yukino Jiame. Although she didn't want to contact her for some reasons, Reina still didn't want her to be hurt. This may be the unique sensitivity of people who have been hurt. Or Reina is a kind person. Have you thought about how to tell your mother later? 5th place, Lin Zian suddenly had a very exaggerated expression. Only 5th place, what's there to say about that? Although Lingnei said this, she couldn't hide the pride on her face, and even showed it with her smile. She used to be a nobody with average level, but now she suddenly became a top student. It's normal for her to be a little proud of this huge contrast. After all, the sense of accomplishment in the learning process is the biggest motivation. In fact, Lingnei's result is a bit of a trick, because Lin Zian helped her review before the exam. Although it's not the same questions, there is no difference in general. After all, junior high school students only learn that little. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 250. We're back. Reina dropped her school bag and ran barefoot inside as soon as she left. It seemed she wanted to ask for credit. Lin Ziyan smiled and helped her pick up her school bag and put it aside before slowly walking in. As soon as she entered the living room, she saw Reina holding Michiko's arm and saying something, with a smile on her face like a bright summer flower. Michiko was still holding the clothes-making tools in her hand, and she was obviously hugged by Reina before she could put them down. But at this time, she couldn't care about it. Her daughter got such a good result, and she was so excited. No less than Reina. Just look at the smile on her face. So, I didn't lie to you, did I? Lin Ziyan walked over and sat across from them and said, Lingnei will definitely get a good result in the exam. Seeing him come in, Reina let go of Michiko and rushed toward him. Lin Ziyan had no choice but to catch her when he saw this. He didn't dare to tease Reina in front of Michiko. What if it exploded? Lin Ziyan wanted to hug her away, but Lingnei held her tightly. He could only smile helplessly and patted her. What are you doing? Okay, let me go. Michiko looked at Lin Ziyan's helpless look and covered her mouth with one hand, smiling, with no intention of rescuing him. Ani-chan. Lingnei, who was hugging him, suddenly whispered. Lin Ziyan stopped when he heard this and asked. What's wrong? After a few seconds, Reina whispered, thank you. After saying this, Reina let go of the hand holding him and just rested her head on it. Why are you thanking me? I didn't take the exam, it was your own efforts. Lin Ziyan suddenly felt that Lingnei's body was unnatural, and when he looked down, there were a few water stains on his clothes. Why are you crying? Lin Ziyan gently held Lingnei's face with both hands, and then wiped away the tears with his thumbs. I'm happy, Reina cried out, but at this moment she couldn't hold it back any longer, and her tears flowed out like broken pearls. Lin Ziyan could probably guess what Lingnei was thinking. He immediately held Lingnei in his arms and said, just be happy. Michiko on the other side just sighed and said nothing when she saw this situation. However, Lingnei quickly stopped, let go of Lin Ziyan and said with a smile, I'm fine, I'm just happy. Go and wash your face first and see what it's like. Lin Ziyan pinched her face and said. Reina jumped up and walked to the toilet. Wipe it first. Michiko handed over the tissue and looked at the marks on his clothes. Lin Ziyan didn't say anything, just took it and wiped it. After wiping, Lin Ziyan just looked at Michiko without saying anything, making her look confused and asked. What happened to Kingtian-kun? You don't have to worry now, I said. I've never been worried, Michiko interrupted Lin Ziyan fiercely, and when Lin Ziyan looked over, he said, I have always believed in Kingtian-kun. Okay. Lin Ziyan casually brought this matter up. If he really believed Michiko's words, he would be really stupid. He just listened to her words. Since she said this, he had no objection. What are Ani-chan and Mom talking about? Reina walked in from the side and asked. What does Lingnei want to eat tonight? Lin Ziyan said first. No need, everyone said I want to lose weight. Reina thought she was going out to eat again, so she refused directly. Although she really wanted to go, the burden of losing weight kept weighing on her. Forget it, I originally wanted to take action, Lin Ziyan said deliberately. Lingnei's expression suddenly collapsed. She saw Lin Ziyan hesitating, but she felt heartbroken when she saw him like that and said, I want to lose weight. By the way, Michiko asked as if she remembered something, how was Kingtian-kun's score this time? It's okay, normal level. Lin Ziyan smiled and didn't give a specific answer. He just passed it casually, then looked at the clock and said, it's almost time, and I have to deal with the work accumulated in the past few days. After saying that, he got up and went upstairs, taking Xiaobai out after a while. How did Kingtian-kun do in the exam this time? Michiko asked Reina curiously after Lin Zion left. I don't know. Let me ask Mr. Miyazun first. Reina was also a little curious, so she went through her school bag to find her mobile phone and asked Miyazun re. To be honest, she herself didn't believe the ranking last time. It was not in line with the almighty Unii-chan. Reina looked at the reply on her phone and was stunned for a moment. How many? Michiko also came over, but Reina exited the software and said, 149. Michiko didn't think anything of it. For her, it was not her turn to worry about Lin Zion's grades, but her daughter's reaction just now was a bit abnormal. Everyone is indeed a gossip, and Michiko is no exception, are you right? Lin Zion complained as he walked on the road, while Xiaobai followed him. Meow. You can walk by yourself, no matter how old you are, you still need to be hugged. Meow. I'll give you a task later. If you do it well, the benefits will be great. Lin Zion ignored Xiaobai's protest and said to himself. Drawing a pie is almost a must-have skill for bosses. Otherwise, how can we make employees happy? We're here. Lin Zion stood in front of the door of Sakai Otoi's house, but did not open it. He had returned the key long ago. This was the time to attack. Come. Lin Zion picked up Xiaobai, help me go in and see what she is doing first, then open the door for me. After saying that, he threw Xiaobai in. As for why he didn't just open the door and go in? It didn't matter to him whether he had a key or not. That being said, after the last time, Sakai Otoha reactivated the camera in her house. If he really went in without hesitation, it would be a bit troublesome. Xiaobai is still more useful. It wasn't long before Xiaobai came out by herself, with a bunch of keys in her mouth. How is it? What is she doing? Lin Zion took the key from Xiaobai's mouth and asked. Meow. Xiaobai called, then turned around and jumped in. I knew it. Lin Zion opened the door with the key and walked directly to the hall. You can hear the loud game sound effects before you get close to him. Hello, Sakai Otoha, Lin Zion said sarcastically, looking at the salted fish lying on the sofa playing games. Huh? Sakai Otoha jumped up from the sofa, then froze, not knowing what to do, watching Lin Zion walk around the hall. How did you get in? Sakai Otoha asked after a long while. Hey. Lin Zion put down the trash can in his hand and threw out the key.